One, firstly, we have to identify and know what then this debate is about. Well, as side affirmative, we think that this debate is not about whether we have the capacity to then invest in either of the two curriculums. To say that in today's debate, we choose to. It is wrong for then the negative thing to assert that well we do not have the capacity to maybe invest in some of the curriculum or maybe other sectors. It is something that should remain justified throughout this debate. But also, secondly, on our side, we want to first characterize for you competence-based curriculum and then knowledge-based curriculum. Competence-based curriculum is where we find things like maybe we engage children into things like practicals, into things like skills that actually equip them or bring results of these children becoming creative and more so. But in knowledge-based curriculum, this is a curriculum where we have things like where they prioritize much of theory or memorizing work maybe in classes and many other stuff. That's how the size of the curriculum look like in today's space. Secondly, we first have to identify the problem that then exists in status quo. A is that the problem that then exists in African nations is the problem of high unemployment. To say that in the first case, well, the reason as to why people are unemployed is not because they lack maybe the knowledge. No, it's not to say that knowledge is not with these people. This is to say that they lack the application of the knowledge because they do not have kind of skills. The reason as to why we say the affirmative are much more likely going to solve this problem among African nations is to say that competence-based curriculum involves things like skills that which people need more than having knowledge. To say that on the side of negative, well, even if knowledge-based curriculum has some kind of impact, it is not applicable or there is no satisfied justification of its application in today's debate that should remain justified throughout the whole debate. Okay, our team case panel, this is what we should identify. Why then we think as African nations we should prefer competence-based curriculum over knowledge-based curriculum. Number one is that on the idea that competence-based curriculum equips children with skills and capacity. This is to say that in the world we are into place, actually people are in need of skills more than knowledge. To say that to compete for other global markets, we do not have to engage in things like cramming work, cramming theory in such a case. People need things like that practical that enable them to actually get things like digital solutions, even to get solutions to solve other problems in the real world. But also secondly is on the idea that competence-based curriculum increases things like creativity and innovation. To say that in the first case, well, competence-based curriculum, knowledge-based curriculum looks at maybe things, knowledge-based curriculum looks at memorizing things, but not application of these things. In such a case, well, it means that innovation and creativity is not taken in such a curriculum. But secondly, we have to identify that competence-based curriculum actually competence-based curriculum reduces the skills gap. This is to say that in competence-based curriculum, this actually trains people that create jobs. In knowledge-based curriculum, this actually trains people that are going to be employed. But in our case, we think that we train people who are going to employ other people in the first place, which is something that is impactful for our world and for our societies. But also secondly, is to look at what then these skills are going to do in the lives of Africans or in African nations. To identify and understand that in these skills actually are some things that are sustainable. You're not going to tell me that skills are going to expire or get off. If I learn how to sew a sweater, that skill will remain into my life. But if I get knowledge on how to make a sweater, maybe other types of making sweaters could arise. So that makes knowledge-based curriculum something that is not sustainable or lifelong curriculum in today's debate. And with that, we think our case is much more justified. I take just my case.
None of us thoughts on the motion. African nations prefer CBC, content-based curriculum, KBC, knowledge-based curriculum. To combat technological transformation, we agree with the definitions given by the affirmative side. Our parameters are Africa. Our status quo is CBC is still new and confusing in many countries. Teachers, parents, and even students are struggling to adapt. Infrastructure like computers and electricity are lacking in many rural schools. Many African countries rely on theoretical education systems to build foundational knowledge. Our team line is CBC looks good in theory, but mostly to implement easy, misapplied, and may be ineffective without infrastructure and teacher capacity. KBC has advantages in foundational knowledge. First speaker, you're talking about how CBC teaches life skills. Life also needs discipline and knowledge. You can't solve problems when you don't understand. CBC sounds nice until you meet a student who can code but can't even write a sentence. Imagine, you can build anything but can't write a sentence, or you can't even read a thing. Life skills means that you need to read, and for jobs you need to be reading, you need to be trying your best to write, and you can't write a sentence. Guys, we're not serious. Our key points are KBC builds strong foundational knowledge. CBC is expensive and unrealistic. Implementation cost and capacity are sufficient and standardization issues. Many African schools lack computers, electricity, or internet. CBC requires digital tools and well-trained teachers, which are not available everywhere. It's like asking a farmer to play a pen. Good idea, but wrong decision. CBC causes confusion and pressure. Parents complain about too much homework and group projects. Teachers are overworked and underpaid. Students get tired doing endless competence tasks instead of mastering academic basics. Engineers, doctors, and leaders are great minds today, from Nelson Mandela to Wangari Maathai studied under KBC. It clearly works. Don't fix what isn't broken. CBC does not reduce. CBC reduces unemployment, is what the professor might say, but show us the data. You can't innovate when you can't even spell innovation. Denied. CBC requires teacher training, assessment systems, classroom materials, and infrastructure, computers, electricity that many African nations lack. Are you telling me that we can do KBC when we don't even have the resources? Are you telling me we don't have the computers and electricity to do CBC? My second speaker is going to explain the rest of our points. My third speaker is going to summarize. Thank you.
Receive from their side. Their side tells us things like capacity does not exist within these African nations to actually carry out this CBC. But Pano, to understand is that the debate is not about the capacity. We tell you that imagination of capacity, like capacity is there. So what is better? With this, what is preferable? Would these African nations prefer competence-based curriculum, or they would prefer knowledge-based curriculum? That's what the debate is about. The debate is not to say that these African nations actually don't have capacity. The debate is to say that with the presence of capacity, would you prefer competence-based curriculum, or you would prefer knowledge-based curriculum? But also, panel, they tell us things like these life skills are part of the knowledge-based curriculum, which are not part of the competence-based curriculum. But panel, what is the relevancy of today's debate? The relevancy of today's debate is concerning technological transformation, which actually all their arguments are not linked to the motion. Like they tell us things like life skills, but they actually don't tell us how it's relevant for technological transformation in the long run. But also, panel, in their debate, they debate the advantages of knowledge-based curriculum versus the disadvantages of competence-based curriculum. But that is not the debate. The debate is actually about is competence-based curriculum preferable, or is knowledge-based curriculum preferable? The debate is not about the disadvantages or the advantages. The debate is to say what would you rather prefer in presence of capacity and all the other things that you'd rather need. But also, panel, they debate things like confusion and pressure. But panel, look at a world where we are having knowledge-based curriculum. Actually, in the knowledge-based curriculum, this is where you find like the children are equipped with a lot of work, like they are under pressure to cram all those things, like they are forced to cram those things. Without cramming those things, like you fail exams and you find you have to repeat the semester like 2 times. So we then think that because of that, it would actually be better with competence-based curriculum, whereas you're taught a skill and that that skill still goes on through you, and there is no pressure and confusion as they argue, but rather the pressure and confusion actually occurs while we are having the knowledge-based curriculum, because we still prove to you that actually in the current curriculum, which is being used in most African countries, in most African nations like Uganda, like Tanzania and Nigeria, confusion and pressure still occurs in the knowledge-based curriculum. So we prove to you that it actually won't be happening in the competence-based curriculum. But also, panel, they tell us things like this competence-based curriculum is expensive and unrealistic. But panel, we think that there are countries like Rwanda and Kenya that have been able to implement this competence-based curriculum. Money has never been enough, capacity has never been there, but still they have to look for other measures to do what is better for their countries. That is what we explain to you. Panel, to my guest extension, we tell you that this knowledge-based curriculum is a lifelong curriculum. Why do we say it's a lifelong curriculum? It's simply because knowledge transpires through generations. Like you find like the knowledge changes generation to generation. Like currently we have a high rate of unemployed people who have learned the knowledge-based curriculum. They have undergone the knowledge-based curriculum and they are still unemployed. Why? Because there are no jobs. Like knowledge-based curriculum trains people to be job seekers, not job creators. Where we show you that the competence-based curriculum trains people to be job creators and not job seekers, meaning a high rate of people will be employed. With all that being said, I would like to raise my case, and I think proposition takes the debate. Thank you.
Voice audible at this volume. Starting in 3, 2, 1, start. Greetings, panel and fellow debaters. I am the second speaker from the non-affirmative side opposing the motion. African nations prefer CBC, competence-based curriculum, to KBC, knowledge-based curriculum, to combat technological transformation. The affirmative side came here and talked about how my first speaker talked about how expensive it would be to implement, and this is very true. How about the second speaker came here and talked about favoring other countries which already have enough money to implement this curriculum? How about instead we focus on the present and make sure that the future is advanced by focusing on what to advance currently in the present? The second and first speaker also came here and talked about how competence-based, which is examples and doing things practically, is better than knowledge-based. But I don't think they understand that you need knowledge to be able to do the thing practically. Once you need to learn something, for example, to cook, you need to learn how to do it. You need to get step by step for a recipe to get the masterpiece. I'm now going to bring back our team line. CBC looks good in theory, but it's costly, implement, easy to misapply, and may be ineffective without infrastructure, teacher capacity. KBC has advantages in foundational knowledge, giving us the point that KBC will help all of Africa in technological transformation. This applies to the transformation when we make technology better, when we make Africa a better place. So CBC is the wrong one to implement and KBC is correct. CBC causes confusion and pressure. Parents complain about too much homework and group projects. Teachers are overworked and underpaid. Students denied, get tired, doing endless competency tests instead of mastering academic basics. Many African schools lack computers, electricity, or internet. CBC requires digital tools and well-trained teachers which are not available everywhere. It is like asking a farmer to fly a plane. Good idea, wrong resources. KBC produces African doctors, engineers, leaders. Our great minds today, from Nelson Mandela to everyone else, studies under KBC, not CBC, proving how KBC is better than CBC. See, they say CBC reduces unemployment. Show us the data. You cannot innovate when you can't spell innovation itself. You cannot do the practical when you don't know the information on how to do it. CBC fits African culture, they say. Traditional education was oral and structured. That's closer to KBC. CBC teaches life skills, they say. Life also needs discipline, knowledge. You can't solve problems you don't understand. You can't go ahead into a math test just knowing how to do it. You need to know the knowledge on how to do it step by step so that you don't do anything wrong. You say CBC makes jobs. Are you sure? It's not the making jobless graduates with big dreams. My comrade, have you ever seen a computer in a school without power? CBC sounds nice until you meet a student who can code but write a sentence. This is why the non-affirmative side should win this debate. Thank you.
Society opposition to lose the debate with an AI face. Still, going ahead, I think the issue in this debate is the problem at hand. From our first speech we are said to you that the problem is that in Africa we have unemployment and limited growth. That is something they concur too. So the debate should be judged on the metrics on which side best solves the problem, which is just logical. Down to our very first catchword. We debate knowledge versus skill. They believe that knowledge solves these problems, except they fail to show us how knowledge solves those problems. What they do on the other side of the house is they say, oh no, there's no jobs, you can't create jobs. They don't show us how having more knowledge creates more jobs. We show you that with a KBC in place, there are no jobs, which means that KBC has essentially done nothing to solve the problem within Africa. That is just analysis on that side of the house. On our flip end, we show you that with skills, people can actually implement skills. Our first speaker talks about innovation. We think that when people have the skills to do certain things, they become innovative, they create machines, they create companies, they create electric cars, and that's just innovation. These are things that actively create one, employment, two, create technological development, but then even three, create jobs for people. And that is simple analysis we get from first speech, they give us no engagement too. What do they present in this house? They present things that are one, mutually inexclusive. They say things like it's very expensive. But we think if one side of the curriculum is very expensive and the other side should not be, then everyone in Africa should ideally be educated. If KBC were not so expensive, then we'd have schools all over Africa. That is just logical analysis. But we think that things of how one is more expensive or better than the other do not hold exclusivity in tonight's debate, which is why they should not be considered. Still, in our second speech, we show you that money ideally will never be enough. We will never have enough money to completely do something. We will never have enough money to have a So why hold ourselves back when ideally money will never be enough? But then even still, we did analysis from our first speech, but the problem is not about disadvantages vis-a-vis advantages of each side of the house. The problem is about how one side of the house tackles the problem in tonight's debate, which is why the ideas of how it's more expensive, on how we don't have teacher capacity, do not hold over in United States. Because the debate shows disadvantages vis-a-vis advantages. What did they talk to us about? They tell us that you need knowledge to be able to apply things. One, I think it is very wrong in a preferred motion to be saying that you need the other guy's curriculum to also help your curriculum. You either pick between KBC or CBC, but then still, that's just blame us. Ideally, we need to be able to understand that within the CBC, people understand topics and go ahead to implement topics. It is not just about understanding, it's about your competence to actually implement things. What that shows you is in the CBC, people are able to understand deep topics and enough to apply them. We think by the time people can apply the things they are knowing, they ideally have sufficient knowledge to actually do these things. It is wrong to assume you're just teaching people how to do stuff without teaching them about that stuff. But then even still, if someone knows how to do something, ideally they have the knowledge about it, which is just logical analysis. I hope I will not have to come to the next page. Still, what ideas they talk about? They say that you need, the great men in tonight in this world have all gone to the KBC. That is wrong analysis because even some of the great nations in tonight in this world have actually had CBC. People are making AI, people are making machines, and that is innovation, that is creativity, that is competence, life skills. We did in our first speech that people through the CBC gain invaluable life skills, skills like negotiation, skills like teamwork, and these are skills that enable people to actively compete in the job market. Why does Africa suffer unemployment? Because everyone has a degree and not many people actually know how to utilize those degrees. And that is a problem with unemployment. That comes from our first speech. How do we solve that? We give people the competence, like communication, negotiation, teamwork. These are all things that build confidence, that make people ideal candidates for employment and solve the unemployment gap. That's on the issue of unemployment. So if they concur to us in tonight's debate that the problem within Africa that they do from their first speech is unemployment and lack of jobs, we solve both of those problems straight from our first speech. They do not give us any logical analysis. They blame us for a lot of things that they themselves are not innocent of. We think that debate is not disadvantages and advantages, that debate should be judged on who best actually makes Africa move forward in technological development. That things limiting us from technological development are unemployment, lack of innovation, and limited jobs. We think we solve both those sides and win that debate for us. Thank you. 3, 2, 1. And the third speaker from the non-affirmative side
which oppose the motion, African nations prefer CBC to KBC to combat technological transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, after listening to the affirmative, I think they live in a movie called Fast and Furious. They want CBC, so our kids can become tech geniuses. But even their teachers can't open Microsoft Word. KBC gave us doctors, scientists, and presidents. CBC might give us TikTokers with PowerPoint skills. They say CBC fits Africa, but with Africa. The one with Wi-Fi or the one still charging phones at the shopping center. In short, CBC is like the downloading on an app, a phone with no storage. Good idea of wrong timing. Let's fix the system before charging it. KBC may be old, but at least it works. It's the Nokia 3310 of education, unbreakable. My vitals. They tell us people need skills over knowledge. Are you telling me that as a human being, we can just go into somewhere and start working, we can start doing something without knowledge, make it make sense? You can't just start doing a job without actually needing any knowledge. You can tell us that you think it's better, that you tell us that capability does not matter. But how do you expect the curriculum to lead themselves? You cannot ignore the capabilities. How about how we're going to add the expenses and all of that? You just say it's not expensive. And you just gave us a few examples of the leading African countries. You see, the government side only cares about the leading African countries. How about the ones that are still in poverty? How about the ones that are still trying to grow? It does give so many costs. They're still trying to pay for these computer bills. They're still just trying to pay for the electricity bills. They also told us that, of course, you're gonna need skills, and that we should forget about knowledge. But it does not make sense how you expect me to do something. How you expect me to do something without actually having the knowledge, without actually being educated about something? How are you gonna do it? So they say CBC teaches skills without knowledge are right. They say KBC is outdated. All doesn't mean useless. Ask your grandmother's cooking. CBC prepares for the future. Let's master the present first. KBC is exam-based, that's what they say. Exams build discipline and memory. They say KBC promotes innovation. Innovation needs knowledge first. My conclusion. The debate has relied on the most supportive system for us Africans. We told you KBC makes you flexible and expressive ideas. CBC makes you confused. Under CBC, you copy coding but don't actually know how to. Under KBC, you actually learn how to apply ideas, how to learn to make your ideas, and not just be a copy-paste machine your entire life. That's why we believe we should be, because we care about Africa and we care about how KBC is actually going to help us through knowledge. Thank you.
I ask that we be excused for some minutes to deliberate and we'll be back with you.
Yes.